What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Captain America, Brave New World, the new superhero film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the 35th entry at that. And this, of course, is the fourth Captain America film, but the first to star Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson in the Captain America role, one he adopted at the end of the Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which came out almost 4 years ago at this point. And Captain America Brave New World, this movie was supposed to come out at one point last year, got delayed to this year, featuring a challenging production and post-production, going under heavier reshoots than to be expected for most blockbuster films. That being said, I was going into the movie with an open mind because I actually was pretty grabbed by the marketing and the trailers and whatnot. I definitely thought there was a chance the movie could stick the landing and actually kind of be somewhat decent. Harrison Ford joined the MCU, taking over the role of Thunderbolt Ross from the late William Hurt, and the marketing, of course, heavily, advertised and focused on Ross's transformation into the Red Hulk as a key feature of this movie. Unfortunately, the production issues that plagued Captain America Brave New World are very apparent when you watch the movie. This film is really busting at the seams and is clearly a Frankenstein monster of multiple shoots and myriad screenplays. At the end of the day, it doesn't have a standout set piece. There's not a key moment of action that you can point to that's super engaging in this movie, which is a pretty big sin for a superhero film. Picking up where Falcon and the Winter Soldier left off makes a lot of sense, of course, but the desire to close myriad loose ends from well-regarded films such as The Eternals and 2008's The Incredible Hulk is pretty confounding and ultimately just not that compelling. I like Anthony Mackie just fine, but when he's given this level of material and this lack of depth, there's not a lot he can do. A lot of expository dialogue. The movie really wants to be like a political thriller film, harkening back to some of the elements of Winter Soldier. The movie's just not very super, and that's an element of the movie, of the story, right? Sam Wilson, not a super-powered character, and at times he has insecurities about that, which he should have taken the serum, like Steve and Bucky. He literally says it in the movie. I think that presents opportunity for the character to be more interesting, and I definitely think Sam Wilson was a lot more interesting in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series, which was a show that ultimately really failed to land. It had a really bungled finale, but still presented some interesting ideas and really fleshed out a supporting character from the previous MCU ensemble in Sam Wilson, of course. I think what you're left with is just a movie that's really kind of concerned with wiping our hands of a lot of MCU stuff. And did I need to revisit Tim Blake Nelson's character from the '08 Hulk movie? No, and to be honest, I had forgotten about him. I had forgotten he was in the movie. Perhaps is it a bit clever to use the Celestial Island from the end of the Eternals, using that to be an introduction of Vibranium into the MCU? I like that. That's fun. Kind of reminds me of some early Phase 2, Phase 3 era MCU storytelling where they would kind of weave stuff in like that in the background to kind of seed future story. It's pretty fun, pretty amusing. I think now that we're at the point where there's been so many unpaid off MCU post-credit scenes that when you have these other developments like this in the film, it just kind of feels like we're piling up and we just need to execute on stuff. And that feeling is going to continue, right? I think everything's riding on Fantastic Four as a real paradigm shifter for the MCU, but Brave New World and probably Thunderbolts as well kind of feel like holdover projects in a certain sense. I enjoyed Harrison Ford in the movie. I definitely think he's trying to do his best in the movie, but again, the material isn't awesome, to be honest. I think the Thunderbolt Ross character is so thinly veiled facsimile of certain figures in our current political system that it's just kind of makes you roll your eyes. For a movie that ultimately gets quite geopolitical and quite international, it also feels so small scale, which is kind of a tough situation to be in. The whole conflict with Japan in the movie, it's wow, this is not super engaging because we know neither side is actually the bad guys and we're just kind of spinning our wheels. I don't know, man. This is a film that it was in rough shape. It was probably a bit ill-conceived, we know that Giancarlo Esposito's character in the movie, Sidewinder, the first, like, the big heavy in the movie, but he's kind of like the false flag villain, not the true villain in the movie, of course. He was completely added during reshoots, his character. As a result, Rosa Salazar's Serpent Society character completely excised from the movie. This film just had a lot of issues with it, story-wise. And don't know how much of that could have been fixed at the beginning, but, like, things you could fix would just be that, like, it's not visually interesting at all, to be honest. It doesn't look great. Pace-wise, tone-wise, it's also super, super serious. I mean, in my theater, the theater goers lit up when Bucky Barnes shows up. Sebastian Stan shows up for a one-scene cameo in the movie. And that was actually also happened to be one of the most humorous scenes in the movie. Otherwise, the movie's super serious, super dour, and it's not what you usually expect from the MCU tone and MCU style of storytelling, right? The Red Hulk stuff doesn't happen until the last 20 minutes, despite how heavily it was hinted at and, of course, marketed. So, don't know how well it really lands as like a kind of like a one-off thing, Like, I guess this kind of reminds me of like Hulk. You pair like Hulk and Thor Ragnarok, or Hulk and Avengers 2 with the Hulkbuster. Like, that was Iron Man, of course, but like, those brief moments of Hulk stuff within a non-Hulk movie, those elements land a lot better than how Red Hulk lands here. It kind of feels a bit extraneous because we ultimately know that Ross isn't really the bad guy still. So, like, it just, I don't know, just the manipulation of it all just feels a bit contrived on Tim Blake Nelson's villain character part. Just not the most compelling antagonist. Danny Ramirez plays like the new Falcon, the sidekick to Sam's Cap, and he's doing his best as well. Charismatic, charming for sure, but pretty one-note character. Has to do a lot of exposition and be the main joke teller for the most part. Isaiah Bradley is in the movie, particularly in the beginning, but because he was introduced on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and most people who go see this movie will not have watched that show, there's incredibly clunky dialogue to re-explain who his character is and his entire backstory that was, expounded upon to decent effectiveness on the TV show already. So there's just like really poor elements of dialogue where they have to be like, oh, Isaiah Bradley, you're the guy who got fucked over by the government and in prison for 30 years. It's just like, it just doesn't read and sound normal, Did I enjoy seeing Takahiro Hira play the PM of Japan? Of course, he of Ashido and Shogun fame. Yes, I enjoyed seeing him. That was cool for what it was. Shira Haas is new to the film as well. Of course, an Emmy nominee for Netflix's Unorthodox, playing the head of security for Ross, President Ross. And she doesn't have a whole lot to do either. And they also like clearly like sanded down her actual character's like comic book origins, which of course is an Israeli Mossad agent, and they kept her, but they changed her backstory to be an ex-Black Widow, and I don't know, like, I kind of wish they had like more conviction, just like stick to what she is, call her an Israeli character, maybe present that as something that's a bit controversial, like take a stand, take a side with it, don't just like change it just for the sake of changing it. It's kind of lame. And yeah, I guess in conclusion, like, the movie just doesn't surprise you really at any turn. It doesn't grab you any standout set piece at any turn. Yeah, it's fun watching Harrison Ford attempt to invoke, clear and present danger in Patriot games and Air Force One and all that all over again. But he's also limited by a pretty poor script. We know we'll see Sam and probably Danny Ramirez again, in the Avengers films with Secret Wars. The notion that Ross proposes of Sam reuniting, getting the Avengers back together again. I'll be curious if that thread's actually picked up at all, because obviously there's a lot of seeding for like a young Avengers to exist in the MCU, given the characters we have right now. Maybe Sam is the one who actually gets together all the adults to reform a new Avengers. We'll find out in 2 years, with Avengers Doomsday probably. But yeah, this one is honestly kind of a stinker. I didn't hate watching it, but it just doesn't really rise above at any turn to really stand out, unfortunately. Continues a pretty poor run of form for the MCU for the most part. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine, massive hit last year, but also comes with a bit of an asterisk because that is a Fox inherited MCU property and has a different set of expectations and backstory to it. So, as I said, we'll see what happens with Thunderbolts, which I'm optimistic about. I like the look of the trailer and stuff, but we'll see. And then Fantastic Four, the first thing that's going to really feel new and consequential in some time, has to really land, and we'll see how it goes. But let me know, what'd you think of Brave New World, Captain America 4? Are you excited about it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in between, let me know. Actually, the next thing for MCU is actually Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus in about a month. So we'll talk about that next. But yeah, let me know. What are you thinking about it? How you feeling about the MCU these days? And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.